You're listening to Who Were the Comedian Harmonists, the true story behind Broadway's harmony. I'm your host, Ruthie Fierberg.
Ari just had these beautiful, golden, effortless pipes. And it's one of the most brilliant sounds I think I've ever heard come out of a singer's mouth. Truly. And he still sounded like that at the end of his life.
Look at the stars, how brilliant they are.
Asparuch David Leschnikoff, better known as Ari, was born on July 16, 1897 in Haskovo, Bulgaria. He was the oldest of the Comedian Harmonists. His father, Dmitry Leschnikoff, was the head of the Haskovo post office. His mother was a homemaker named Anna, who is said to have had a beautiful singing voice, as this podcast's resident historian, Jan Grübler, tells us.
He came from Bulgaria, and his father was a post officer or a post clerk, the leader of the post station in his hometown. And also Ari was grown up with music because his mother was singing for him, and he learned how to sing. And then at school, he also went in a school choir. And then he started to become an officer in the Bulgarian army. He was in the military academy in Sofia, where he trained his voice and where he sang together with other, even well-known Bulgarian artists. And so he decided to go to Berlin and to study music, especially singing at the high school for music in Berlin. He was someone who grew up in poor circumstances. And I think that he was very overwhelmed about the social life and the culture and the economic system in Germany when he came here. But maybe that was one of the reasons to go to Germany, because there was a chance to earn money as a singer.
Was it common for young Bulgarian boys to go to military school? Was this just the usual path, or was there a reason that his family sent him when he was about 17?
I'm not sure who made this decision. Maybe it was forced by his father, because he was a state servant too. If Ari wanted to become an officer or not, I'm not sure. But he rather would sing and he rather would study music. So he finished the study, but then he immediately went to Germany.
Is it right that it was someone at the military academy who said to him, "Wow, you have a beautiful voice. You should be in a different part of school"?
He was supported by a known singer, and he was also a composer, I think. And he said to him, "You should study music to train your voice, and you could become a singer. You are talented or gifted in music."
From 1916 to 1918, Ari trained at this military academy. But the military band leader, Alois Mazak, and Bulgarian opera composer Georgi Atanasov recommended that Ari study with Ivan Volpe, another Bulgarian opera singer and teacher. In 1922, at the age of about 25, Ari moved to Berlin to continue to study music. He gets to Berlin, so where does he start?
Well, he studied at the music high school in Berlin, but as many of the young artists that time, he also appeared for himself in clubs. They had little restaurants, and there he worked as a waiter. And during he served the drinks and the dishes, he sang Bulgarian songs, and he was very beloved by the students and the other people who came there. And there was some kind of training and of rehearsing that made him famous even when he was very young.
In fact, according to the Douglas Friedman biography of the Comedian Harmonists, Ari lived in one of these youth hostels when he first got to Germany. He earned a scholarship at the Sternschiss Conservatorium, a private music school in Berlin that is now part of Berlin University of the Arts. In 1926, Ari became a member of the chorus at the famed Berlin Schauspielhaus.
That was a typical way to start as a choir singer, completely unknown in the mass of the singers. Nobody knew him, but that way he learned to know Biberti. And on the other hand, he knows Erwin Botz, the later piano player of the Comedian Harmonists. And one day they decided Biberti said, you have to come with me. There is a new group. And that's the way how Biberti forced people to get members of the group, because they were very close friends at that time. And Biberti, of course, knew that Leschnikoff had a very, very high quality voice, a very nice voice and a very high voice also. And so he thought, oh, that could be a good first tenor for our group.
And it's funny that they are the opposite poles, as we would say, of the group, the basso and the high tenor.
Yes.
Tell me about Ari Leschnikoff's voice, other than the fact that he was the high tenor, because in all of the reading that I've done, this seems to be one of the most distinctive things about the Comedian Harmonist was the sound of Ari's voice, that it was very unique. Describe to me as best you can the sound and why it was so special.
Yes, it is described as a very high but very thin voice. And I think that's the same with the other voices. It wasn't only the solo voice. Sometimes he sang some solo parts, or you can hear the voice in some phrases. But he wasn't able to sing the real solo parts because his German pronunciation wasn't very good.
More like soprano than tenor.
This is Stephen Telsey, the actor who played Ari in Harmony on Broadway.
There's a video of him singing later in his life, like well into his 60s, in Bulgaria, way after the Comedian Harmonists, and he's sitting on a couch smoking a cigarette, and he still sounds exactly the same. And he has this giant smile on his face, and it's a blurry black and white YouTube video, but it comes right through the screen.
That affable quality is one of the reasons it seems Ari was so beloved. As the Comedian Harmonists achieved success, Ari enjoyed the celebrity of being a member of the group.
A lot of things about the role that Bruce wrote that are similar to him in real life. In the character description, Bruce writes that he's completely agog about the success that falls upon them or something along those lines. And that's how he was. If you watch the documentary, and I highly recommend everybody watch the documentary, it's fantastic. There are English subtitles if you don't speak German. He just loves performing, he loves singing, and he loves the fame of it all. The first thing that he bought when they became famous was a golden cigarette case, because he was a chain smoker. And, that right there, I apply to the show, because as they rise to fame, I think about the golden cigarette case and I'm like, wow, it's so shiny and new. And he's really excited about all of these things.
He was a very sporty man. He was the sportiest of all. He did some horse riding and boxing and so on. That was his hobby, you can say.
That's so interesting. So he was very fit.
Yeah. Well, he was very slim. And the girls liked him because he was a small, dark-haired, slim with a mustache and a cigarette. And he was a pretty nice guy.
Ari was a sophisticated man about town and enjoyed it, according to Harmony's librettist, Bruce Sussman.
He was the one that was so enamored of the fame and all that stuff. And he talked about how women came up to him and cried. They were just, so in love with him.
I think he became very welcome and very beloved, especially among the young girls, because of his appearance as a young guy.
He was a very dapper Dan, as they say. He presented very high class, but I understand that he was very conservative with his money.
Yes, you can say that he was stingy. It says that he tried to save money whenever he could. So he didn't went to the expensive restaurants, but he went to the students' restaurants to have a dish there. But, of course, also Leschnikoff had an own flat in Berlin, and, of course, he had a car then later. But he was more saving money than all the others. We know that Frommermann couldn't save any money. It was running through his fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Biberti bought expensive things from his money, but Leschnikoff saved it mostly.
That's so funny. I also heard about his driver's license photo. Do you know the photograph for his license is special?
Yes, I think he did it in a tailcoat.
Yes,
yeah.
He took it in a tailcoat with a cigarette.
Yes, and that wasn't a made for this document, but there was a photo of the group where he has cut out his head and used it for the driving license to save to save the money for the photographer.
That's even better. That's even better. I find him such a funny character to think about. It also sounds like he was extremely proud of being in the group, that this was a thing of honor for him.
Yes, of course, because, as I said, he came from poor circumstances. And, of course, he saw the conditions in Germany in the late 1920s. And so he felt that this is a great luck to be a part of that successful group and to earn money and to belong to the high society, as to say. So he was really proud of it, yes.
Aside from being the high tenor, what was his role within the group since they all had jobs?
Yes, Leschnikoff was responsible for the exterior, for the dresses, for the tailcoats, and if the hair are well dressed before they go on stage. And he had to control that every time.
Even though he was in charge of the wardrobe and the suits, that there was one night that went very wrong. Do you know the story?
Yes, I know. They went to, I just think which theater it was. It was in Berlin, and they had an appearance on stage in the night. And they went before to the wardrobe and dropped down all their things and their clothing. And when they came back at night to get ready for the stage, then I think 3 of their tailcoats were stolen.
Oh, my goodness.
So they immediately had to borrow tailcoats. I think Colleen bought one from a waiter, and they appeared on stage. You can say well dressed, but in the stage light, could be seen that are not artists' tailcoats, and the color was different and so on.
Right, mismatching. It's funny because in the musical, there is a scene where their suits get stolen. They go out in the waiters' jackets behind tables, but then appear without long pants on, just in their undershorts.
Okay.
And so that's not exactly what happened, but it was inspired by this moment. No one went out half naked in the real story. They all found pants and coats, but they certainly looked mismatched and maybe a little disheveled.
I think that my favorite story is their pants getting stolen. I have it in the play that the entire outfit gets stolen, necessitating another creative move on Harry's part. But they were about to go, one of their big breaks, then they're about to go on stage, and they go, and for who would steal 6 pair of pants? What do you want with 6 pair of pants?
Right.
But someone stole their pants.
Someone stole their pants. Someone stole, I think, a couple of the tailcoats, but not all of the tailcoats. Yeah. And so in your version, they go on stage without pants.
Right.
In real life, they just went on a little more mismatched and disheveled.
Right. And they describe it as being hilarious. I don't know what was so funny about it, but I guess back then, if you wore brown pants with a black tuxedo jacket, it was hilarious. But I decided, well, we have to make it truly hilarious, and we did.
He was a ladies' man, as you said. The girls really liked him.
Yeah.
But he did marry pretty young. Tell me about the woman who he married.
Yes, he learned to know a girl from France that was Delphine David. And her father was French and the mother was Irish. And she was a very nice girl with curly hair. And it says that they learned to know accidentally. I think he went to the embassy to prolongate his passport, and there he met her. She was a young dancer in a British dancing group, and so they fell in love very quickly. And that was already in 1929 when the group was still young.
There are different accounts of how Ari and Delphine met. The passport office is one, according to Jan. Another account says they met when the Comedian Harmonists performed for the review Two Ties at the Berlin Theater, and Delphine was a dancer there. Here's how Ari described their meeting in his own words.
She looked at me, blushed, and I said, "We know each other, mademoiselle." She replied, "I don't speak German very well." "It doesn't matter, neither do I." I thought she was French, but she came from England. Her father was French, her mother Irish. Her name was Delphine. We met at Hotel Eden for a 5 o'clock tea. She came with her cousin, Harry, and Mossy came with me. That's how we met. We talked and danced, and a month later, she was my wife.
Records indicate they met in 1929 and actually had a son in 1930, who they named Ari Leschnikoff. But the baby died only a day old. Ari and Delphine stayed together and eventually married in Berlin in 1932. Though they would be married for quite some time, it's said that Ari was not faithful to Delphine. Harry's first wife, Erna, also known as Marion, says as much about Ari in the Feshner documentary.
Marion is the one who had the great line about that when she said one of the redheads came up to her and said, "Oh, do you think Ari is cheating on me?" And I said to her, "Oh my God, how do I tell her? Of course he's cheating on you." You know, he was sad to say a womanizer. Barry says they were the first boy band, and in a way that's true, and they behaved like it.
Meanwhile, within the Comedian Harmonists, Ari was the closest with Roman Sikowski.
He was my best friend in the Comedian Harmonists. We understood each other in every way because he had something Slav about him. He was a very cultivated person, and I loved him.
Ari and Roman were the only comedian harmonists who were not born in Germany, and there was some camaraderie around that. Stephen Telsey also notes the general Bulgarian attitude towards Jews differed greatly from that of Germany at the time.
Being from Bulgaria during World War II, Jewish people in Bulgaria were not treated the same way they were in the rest of Europe. When the first trains came to deport the Jewish citizens of Bulgaria, there was an uproar among the citizens, and actually it stopped the deportation of Jewish citizens in Bulgaria. So I've never been to Bulgaria. I'm not Bulgarian, but it seems to be that there's a sense of caring for people through the hardest of times.
But, of course, the Comedian Harmonists were based in Germany. And when the Nuremberg laws came down, as we know, it forced the group to split. Ari and his wife Delphine stayed in Germany, and Ari joined the new German group, the Meister Sextet, with Robert Baberti and Erwin Boats. In May 1938, Ari and Delphine welcomed a baby boy named Simeon. So they were together for about 6 years before the son was born.
Yes.
And Simeon was born, like you said, after the original Comedian Harmonists disbanded. I want to rewind to some of that in-between time. Did Delphine travel with the group in 1932, 1933?
Yes, she traveled with the original group before her son was born. She was free to go with the group abroad, as many of the other wives too.
When we spoke of Baberti, that decision to go back to Germany was made while they were in the United States. Do you get the feeling that Leschnikoff, as one of the non-Jewish members, was also in favor of going back to Germany?
Yes, I think so. That is what also he said himself, and what also Baberti said, that Leschnikoff made the decision depending on the decision of Baberti. He was some kind of an idol for him, because he was the big man, the businessman, the wealthy man. And I think Leschnikoff wanted to be a little like Baberti. And of course,
really?
He had to look what will happen if I leave Germany, or if I stay in Germany. Can I be an artist on my own, or will I have been a member of the new group? And finally, he decided to stay with Baberti and to found the new group. He was one of the three owners of the new group. And that was a guarantee to earn money even in future.
I think it's so interesting that he looked up to Baberti so much, because wasn't Leschnikoff also the oldest member of the group?
Yes, that's sometimes interesting. He was elder than Baberti, but so Baberti was like an idol for him.
A presence.
Yeah.
A presence. So as we said in our last episode, there were some conflicts between Leschnikoff and Baberti in the new Meister Sextet group, because was Leschnikoff a little more on the side of the new members who had earned their partnership?
Leschnikoff was a good friend with the new members. For instance, Fred Kassen was the new third tenor, the buffo. And he knew that to the new members was guaranteed that they will become equal members after 3 years. And then it didn't came through after 3 years. And so he solidarized, he made some solidarity with the members, which have been betrayed by Viberti. And Viberti was angry for that. And he turned it around and he claimed Leschnikoff to be uneducated and he is not in time and his voice is lacking of quality and he has no discipline. That is what he claimed even to the Reichsmusikkammer. And so there was rising some dispute between the members and that led finally to the secret contract between all the other members that they will build up a new group without Viberti and with equal membership.
Which didn't come to be, but is still very interesting that it almost happened and that Leschnikoff was on their side.
He was a good guy, and some people say he was a simple guy or simple-minded, but I think it's not true. He was a very heartful person. Leschnikoff still was a member of the Meistersextet until 1939. Then, as I told, he went to Bulgaria to spend the summer break there with his wife and son. He wanted to return in September to proceed the rehearsals with the group. But then the war broke out on September 1st in 1939, and he was drafted to the Bulgarian army. And he had to go to a camp at the borderline of Bulgaria, and even his wife didn't know when he will come back. And so Viberti knew that he can't proceed the group, or he has to do it without his first tenor. And he was waiting and waiting and waiting. And he got some letters from Delphine that she wrote to him, well, my husband is in the army, but he will be back after 6 weeks, or we don't know. But finally, Viberti wouldn't wait any longer. And so he solved the group completely.
What was his post within that military?
I think that was some kind of mobilization, and he had to take part in some maneuvers for a certain time. But after that time, in the end of 1939, I think it was over in December 1939, he immediately returned to Berlin, but then it was too late.
And how long was he in Berlin before he went back again to Bulgaria?
Well, he stayed there, and as we know, there was some trouble between him and Viberti if he could join the Meistersextet again or if they will build up a new group, which didn't work. So he did some solo work too in Germany. He appeared, or he tried to appear on stage. And as we know today, he did a lot of record takes for Bulgaria. That means he sang Bulgarian folk songs in Bulgarian language. They were produced partly in Berlin, so he could earn some money over that time as a solo artist with orchestras in the background. And he went back to Bulgaria finally, I think it was in 1943.
And at that time, he went with Delphine and Simeon back to Bulgaria?
Yes. And they had a comfortable flat there because from his saved money, he bought a big house in Bulgaria. It said that it was a house with 4 floors. And
wow.
They lived there. And then he went back to the army because of the war and became the assistant commander of the Grand Central Station of Sofia, the military commander, as to say.
Wow. That sounds very high up.
He did go back to Bulgaria. There are some reports that say he started working for a music recording company. I believe it's translated to Microphone was the name, and he was higher up in creating music there. And then there are other reports that say that he joined like a civilian military to prevent communists from coming over the mountains during World War II to protect Jewish people. There's a lot of reports on things like that.
In the 1940s, having already withstood the dissolution of the Comedian Harmonists and difficulties with the Meistersextet, Ari remained in Bulgaria when a greater misfortune befell him.
But finally, his house was destroyed by drop bombs. So it was completely destroyed, and he had no home any longer, and all of his property was destroyed. And from that time, the family has to live with friends. They survived, luckily, his wife and his son, but they had no flat any longer. And then they got some asylum with friends until the end of the war.
And once the war ended, what happened next?
He started some cultural work immediately after the war. He was singing with groups, but that were mostly groups of folk songs. It's hard to describe. They sang Bulgarian music and Bulgarian songs, which was known there. But he did it not very long because the difficulties after the war led to a breakup even of that cultural activity for him. After the war, Bulgaria belongs to the socialist countries in Eastern Europe, and Leschnikoff had the Bulgarian citizenship, but his wife still had the British citizenship. So she returned in 1947 together with the son to England, but Leschnikoff wasn't allowed to go with her because he was just living behind the Iron Curtain, you can say. So he had to stay there, and they get disbanded that way. And a few years later, he got divorced, or it says that the marriage got annulled, was erased. And his wife, Delphine, stayed in London with her son. The plan was that the whole family will leave Bulgaria and live together in London, but Ari Leschnikoff wasn't allowed. He was forced to stay in Bulgaria because he has the Bulgarian citizenship only.
Right.
And so Delphine went alone. There was some contact in the later years. They wrote letters to each other, and it was the plan to try anyway to leave Bulgaria for Ari, but it didn't work, and he had to stay there for until the end of his life.
What did the rest of his life look like once they were officially separated?
Well, it's not really clear if he annulled the marriage. I think it was annulled by the authorities.
Oh, I see.
Because he had an foreign wife in a capitalist country, and that wasn't, maybe it wasn't allowed in Bulgaria. So he lived for some years before he married a new younger girl. Sashka Sidorova was his second wife, and he also had a son together with her. They married in 1952, and they lived together until his death in 1978.
Sashka, you said?
Yeah, Sashka.
And what was their son's name?
The second son is Ari Leschnikoff. He lives in Bulgaria, and I guess he's an engineer.
Did Ari ever see his son Simeon again?
There are different informations about that. Anywhere it's written that his son went to Bulgaria once during a travel to Greek or anywhere, and they met again. But others say, I think the granddaughters say, no, that never happened. It's not sure if they have ever seen again.
Right, because Simeon had children as well.
Yeah, Simeon has two daughters, Jessica and Nancy. They live in England.
That side of Ari's lineage has remained in England, where Jessica and Nancy Leschnikoff reportedly reside today. Nancy is an illustrator who specializes in the drawings and design of children's books and book covers. One such book is titled In the Holly Jolly North Pole, published by Simon & Schuster. Jessica Leschnikoff is, in fact, a pianist and multilingual soprano. Ari's other son, Henri, does not have any descendants that we know of. What did the end of Ari's life look like?
Then he had to do any job he could reach to earn money. And as we know, even from the Fechner documentary, he lived under very poor circumstances then, until the end of his life. He had to do very low jobs, and he was living under very poor circumstances. But he always was trying to make music or to sing again as ever it was possible. And he also tried to come in contact with former members. I remember that he wrote letters to Herbert Imlau, that was the baritone of the Meistersextet. And of course, under his circumstances, he was asking for some support because he needed help for new glasses and for new teeth and so on. It was very difficult for him to get that in Bulgaria. And he also wrote letters to Buberti asking him, what about the royalties of the group and my part of that? But Buberti never answered. Buberti was angry on Leschnikoff until the end of his life and made him responsible for the breakup of the Meistersextet. And so he wasn't willing to help him.
There was a lawsuit, and he wasn't able to leave Bulgaria because of the war, and he couldn't go back to Germany to represent himself in the lawsuit. So towards the end of his life, he really didn't have much at all. But he remarried, he had another child, and he farmed and cleaned houses. It was nothing too lavish at all. It's interesting because he started kind of right back where he was.
Right.
You know, it's like all of it happened, and it's kind of like a dream almost.
When did Ari Leschnikoff pass away?
That was in 1978. So he still was interviewed by Eberhard Fechner for his TV documentary.
I was going to say, just a few years past the documentary.
Yeah, that was only 3 years later he deceased. But it's said that he could see the documentary in any way. And it must have been very impressive for all of them. Even both said that, I had in my head the young persons I knew from the 1930s, and now I see all the old men. Must have been impressive for all of them.
And so what for you is Ari Leschnikoff's legacy and our remembrance of him?
Well, first of all, of course, his beautiful voice, which you can hear in many of the songs very, very clear. And, well, his engagement for the other members of the Meistersextet and his heart-feeling kind of friendship with them, that is... I think that is impressive. And to opposite against Buberti, he was very encouraged.
Yes. I understand that he had a nickname. What was it? The Golden Nightingale?
The Golden Nightingale, yes. It's said that he got this nickname from that time very famous German boxer and world champion Max Schmeling. It says that Max Schmeling said to Ari Leschnikoff, "You are my golden nightingale."
When Ari Leschnikoff passed away in Sofia, Bulgaria on July 31st, 1978, he was 81 years old. A telegram announcing his death read, "The Golden Nightingale stopped singing forever." Who Were the Comedian Harmonists? The True Story Behind Broadway's Harmony is produced by Harmony, a New Musical, and Broadway News, the home for digital journalism on Broadway. I'm your host, Ruthie Fierberg. Thank you so much for listening. To read more about the Comedian Harmonists, visit thecomedianharmonists.com. For more information about the musical Harmony, visit harmonyanewmusical.com. And of course, to learn more about all of the happenings on Broadway, visit broadwaynews.com. If you're fascinated by what you've heard so far on this podcast, please share the Comedian Harmonists story on social media and tag @Harmony, a New Musical and @Broadway News.